So Groundfloor allows individual retail investors like you and me to earn very high yields investing in small fractions, fractionally into real estate investment loans.
All right, this is another episode of the Form Your Own Pack podcast from Founders Pack. My guest today is Brian Daly. Brian, how are you doing today?
I'm well. It's good to be with you.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. So for people that don't know, who is Brian Daly?
I am a founder and CEO of Groundfloor. Happy to tell you more about that as we get going.
Amazing. So, and what is Groundfloor?
So Groundfloor allows individual retail investors like you and me to earn very high yields investing in small fractions, fractionally into real estate investment loans. So the idea is hedge funds go out and make big portfolios of real estate debt, make a lot of money doing it, but now we've democratized that down so that everybody can with a minimum investment of $10.
Wow.
So even if you're only investing about $1,000 or a couple $1,000, you can have a very highly diversified portfolio of real estate investment loans. We've returned capital on 2,400 of these loans. They pay back really fast, about 9 months on average, and they generate a yield of about 10.2% on average. So in this inflationary economy, people really appreciate that kind of return.
So when you say 10, that's for the investor, is that kind of percentage?
Yeah.
Wow, that's
So
incredible.
if you show up on the platform today, go build yourself a portfolio of 100 loans. Our software makes that easy to pick and choose what you want. It's not a REIT, so you're not turning your money over to a fund manager. You're actually building your own portfolio. And as a result, as those loans pay off and they start paying off, the next month, you get the principal and interest that we collected on those loans. They're all backed by single family residential property. So it's a really unusual product that most people realize, if you've lost money trading on Robinhood or in cryptocurrency, as a lot of us have, it's a really relatively safe product that pays you a really great yield, and it does it with a high degree of predictability and a low degree of volatility. There's almost no volatility in the product. It's pretty amazing.
So the loans that you are making, are they construction loans or what type of?
Typically the use case is we're lending money to a real estate investor who is acquiring a property and is going to fix it up and then add it to their rental portfolio. We actually now sell equity in those projects as well. So you can actually be the bank and participate in the loan. Or if you want to, you can help fund the equity part. Now, the equity part is riskier, right? So you may make more, or you may have a chance of, losing your capital. But we let you choose. And equity is a new thing that we're doing. It's pretty exciting. So some people want to buy shares of a rental house, for example. A lot of people like that concept. So we enable you to do that. But the main product that we've offered now for 8 years and returned capital on 2,400 loans is a debt product that is very predictable and very stable.
And so the flip side to that, there's two sides to it, is if someone is a real estate investor, they can come to you and get financing.
Yeah. And, we lend money and provide equity capital to a broad array of real estate investors. Most of them are professionals. They are doing this full time.
Right.
They employ a work crew, if not two, and they are professional investors looking for properties all the time. We also will lend, though, if we like the collateral and we like the plan, we'll also lend money on, to people who are new to it. who are hobbyists, but most of the loans we do go to the professionals.
Very interesting. As someone that's very involved in that space as an investor, just having properties.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's quite unique. I don't think I've heard of this too often. I know there's like there are probably competitors in this space. I think there's like
Yeah, there
Fundra.
are. You know, what's different about us compared to a lot of companies that sound like us is most every platform that you find out there that's, you know, sort of crowdfunding real estate or something is only available to accredited investors. And that's because it's easier and there's almost no barrier to entry actually to go, you know, offer investments to accredited investors. We went through a regulatory process over the course of 3 or 4 years that makes us a regulated qualified issuer under Regulation A by the Securities and Exchange Commission. You can read everything about it. We have 8 years of audited financials. We have, you know, an offering circular. We look like a lot like a public company. So that's really attractive to a lot of people because of that regulatory oversight. It's pretty unique, you know, in the industry to be able to offer this to everybody. I mean, the minimum investment of $10, very unusual. You know, most even REITs will require you to put in $1,000 or something. And this thing just absolutely crushes a REIT investment, you know, just by the numbers in terms of sheer cash flow and what it generates over time.
That is super interesting. Okay, I'm gonna pause for 1 sec.
Yeah.
I have one problem.
What you got?
My usual problem.
I have one of those as well. I have 2 of them actually.
Sorry.
No worries.
Demanding.
Mine are demanding as well. I just
You
took
can
them
see
for a
part of the
walk.
motivation behind the pack, right? So
Yeah, I get it. I get it. I have a pack here too.
it's all tied. Do you have you don't have huskies, do you?
No, I have golden doodles.
Oh, okay. Yeah, these are unique. They're wild. So this morning, I've been woken up routinely at like 2 or 3 in the morning because she wants me to go outside and play with her in the forest.
At 2 or 3 in the morning?
Oh yeah, she doesn't
Bro.
care. It's just like, hey, listen, you gotta come outside. So I took her on a walk this morning. That wasn't enough.
Oh, wow.
So she was like whining and talking to me.
Yeah.
And I knew what she wanted because the other day I took her to the local conservation and took her in the woods for a walk.
Yeah.
And like yesterday morning, she took off in the woods after a deer.
Holy shit.
So I don't know why, I just knew. So I threw her in the car and drove her over there, and I took her for like a 40-minute walk.
There you go.
She went to sleep.
Hilarious. Hilarious.
All right, so I'll edit this part out.
Yeah. Yeah. Totally cool.
So what was the, like, I guess, what was the brainwave and what caused you to, have you always been in the finance side? What was the motivation to start this? And
You know, I've been an investor since age 15. My dad sent me to the library to learn what mutual funds are because you had to go to the library. There was no web when I was 15 years old, dating myself here. And I have been interested in investing ever since. I heard about the 2012 Jobs Act, and I was very lucky as I was exploring different ideas around that to start a company or to build a new investment product. I was lucky to meet my co-founder, Nick Bhargavam. A lot of people know about Nick because he worked on Title III of the Jobs Act and lobbied the Senate to help get it passed, and was in the Rose Garden when President Obama signed it.
oh,
So
wow.
he is really a leading light kind of in this Jobs Act sort of area of securities law. And we just hit it off, and we both realized that retail investors, that we deserve better than what the public markets are feeding us, than what our financial advisors are giving us. And you know what? With the advent of technology and this regulatory change, we saw a huge wave of people coming to alternative investments. I'm glad we picked residential real estate because that's not only the biggest category of alternative investing that's available, but it's also the most familiar to people, right? We all watch house flipping shows. 64% of Americans own a house at any given time. So it's a category that people can kind of understand. And then we weren't real estate guys, so we didn't know about this category of real estate investment loans, but we learned about it and we loved it because it repays so quickly. So your money, like when you invest in alternatives, like if you buy a share of, a painting, which is available on another platform out there that some people have heard of called
Seen that
Masterworks.
Masterworks or something.
Yeah. If you buy like a collectible on Raleigh Road, or, you buy any of these other things, you never know when you're going to get your money back, right? Liquidity is a real problem in alternatives. It's exciting because I own a fraction of this cool collectible or something. But with our category, you're going to get your money back quickly, within 9 months on average, like I said. But what's even better is once you have a portfolio, they're always paying back. So like a REIT is going to pay you a dividend of like 6 or 8%. Groundfloor is repaying about 8 to 10% of my portfolio every month, because every month there's a huge batch of loans that's repaying. And of course, I reinvested in the next wave of loans. And so it keeps turning over.
Wow.
It's just a cash flow monster. And because none of us have really had the opportunity to build our own portfolios and to fractionalize like this, nobody really realized that this was an opportunity out there. The hedge funds knew, the family offices knew, the rich guys with big checkbooks knew, and that's how they've made money in real estate, while the rest of us grind it out and suffer from the other big risk in alternatives, which is concentration. Like if you were to go try to make like a hard money loan, you'd have to have like $100,000, or, in our case, our average loan size is $200,000. If you have that much money, you'd have it all tied up in one project, right? Whereas on Groundfloor, you can have thousands of projects for that, right? Ultimately. So that was the flash of insight for us, is that we knew retail investors would be leaving the public markets for alternatives. We figured out that residential real estate would be a good category. And then we were super psyched to find this very attractive, loan product. And it wasn't easy to get it qualified with the SEC. It took 4 years, to go through that. But it was worth it. We've done almost $1 billion of securities sales to retail investors since we started. We have about $300 million in assets under management. So the business has gotten pretty big at this point.
That's amazing. I'm no expert in any of this area, and I kind of understand what you're talking about, but I think for most people, I find real estate attractive because it is tangible, and I understand the loan part of it is really important, right? The access to capital is very important in order to
You put it this way, it's good to be the bank, right? I mean,
right,
it's great to be able to,
it's
great to be able to loan money and have a lien on the property. So if it doesn't get repaid, what happens? Groundfloor forecloses, just like the bank would, and you get the benefit of that as an investor. You realize, banks have it pretty good, so to get to step into their shoes is a pretty good opportunity.
That makes sense to me. Well, I want to be conscious of your time.
Sure.
If you had only one piece of advice for founders, what would that be?
Know thyself, and do not be afraid, knowing yourself, to express that, to be confident in it. I read a book called The Courage to Be Disliked, a while ago, that I thought encapsulated a lot of what I think you have to do well as a founder. It's a lonely pursuit, and you better like the person you're doing it with, i.e. you.
I love it. That is great
And I think that's the most important advice. And it's hard advice to take, because we all have our moments where, we're questioning, what are we doing? And are we an imposter? And we all have those questions along the way. And I think knowing yourself and why you're doing it and what you're about, and standing strong in the, in the face of that kind of self-criticism is really important.
And that's a very interesting book, by the way, which is, I think it's based upon a Japanese philosophy, right? Like there's like something in that culture that, and I can't remember the term, but there's some specific...
Well, typically there are two branches of psychology that are traditionally known in the West that are outlined in the book. And then this is a third way kind of thinking that the book relates. And it's really compelling, for what we do as founders. I think it's a compelling line of thinking.
That makes total sense. And I think I own this book somewhere in my Amazon, so I got to go and dig through and look at it again. But I'm glad you brought that up. That's really interesting. As someone who's inspired by the Japanese Keiretsu to start Founders Pack,
yes,
and that philosophy, very interesting. All right, so what has the role of either community or partnerships been in the success of Groundfloor or yourself?
So I would not have met my co-founder without our startup community in Durham, North Carolina, which is where we started the company. The American Underground is a startup community in Durham. It's actually in Raleigh now, and maybe some other places too. And I was actually volunteering at one of the incubators there to help other founders in that community called Groundwork Labs, part of NC IDEA. And the managing director of the incubator sort of said, "Well, tell me what you're working on." And I was like, "Oh, you don't want to hear about that, And he said, "No, I really want it." So I got up on a whiteboard and I sort of sketched something. And a light bulb went off for him, and he said, "I know just who you need to meet." And that's how a community is supposed to work. It turns out Nick had a startup that went through that very incubator the previous year. And that's how John, our managing director, knew of him. He connected us. We had coffee the next day. And that's where we started the company, down in that underground sort of basement space
Wow, that's
at the
amazing.
American Underground. All because of our community. And there have been other instances too, but that one is especially near and dear to my heart.
I love it. That is a great story of community and how that was fundamental to the foundation of your business. So that's exciting to hear. I do want you to actually be a part of our community. So make sure that we connect you with an invite for Intros by Founders Pack. It's an automated way that members of the Founders Pack community get introduced to each other by email every week. So you opt in
Awesome.
Monday, and then on Wednesday, you get a match and you can pick a time to meet by Zoom. So I want to invite you and Nick, your co-founder, to that. That'd be great.
Absolutely. What a great idea.
We're pretty excited about it. It's been working out really well, and we're very careful about who comes in, but I think you'd be a great fit. So it'd be great to have you part of that.
Oh, thanks.
All right. So what is the best way for people to get in touch with you?
I'm really active on Twitter, so you can reach me there, Brian_Dally, and that's Brian with an I, Dally. That's a good way to reach me. And then, my inbox, like most people, is overflowing, but I'm also available at brian@groundfloor.us. And I do a pretty good job keeping up with emails, especially from founders and investors and people who
Terrific.
want to connect. So yeah, you can reach me there.
Awesome. All right. So the final thing is, when we have interesting people on the podcast, we like you to nominate other interesting people. We talk typically to either investors or founders of scalable ventures. So who would you like to nominate as a future guest?
Do you want to edit that dog bark out, by the way?
We can
You want to
invite
ask
the
that
dog.
question again? What's that?
We can invite the dog. I already had a dog interrupt us once. So
Sure. My suggestion, my nomination is to interview Nick King of Vint.
Vint. Okay.
Nick has a really interesting fractional wine investing platform that he's building. And I really like Nick. He's a really resourceful and insightful founder who I think you'd enjoy talking to.
Awesome. All right. So Nick King, we will accept that nomination. Nick King, we look forward to having you as a future guest on the Form Your Own Pack podcast. Brian, thank you so much. I really appreciate you joining us, and we look forward to following your journey.
Thanks a lot for having me.